Welcome to Early Bird Picker. I'm Rafa, and this is my YouTube series, Kaizen Selling. I'm a full-time reseller and entrepreneur, and I'm documenting my journey of applying continuous improvement principles to every part of my business. I've got months, if not possibly even years, of planned content, and I've decided to name my series Kaizen Selling because Kaizen, it's a Japanese word or term, philosophy that basically just means a commitment toward making continual improvement over the long haul. So going forward, each and every video that I make in this series will just document the little changes that I'm making in my reselling and entrepreneurship projects that slowly improve my business over the long term. I'm documenting my process in hopes that maybe you'll see something that's of value to you if you're a reseller or entrepreneur that you can apply to your own business practices. As you saw, the title of this video is Debriefing My Past 2 Failed Attempts at Reselling and Entrepreneurship. So let me ask you, when you hear the word debrief, what comes to mind? For me, it's like military operations. But honestly, I think that the debrief is very applicable to resellers and entrepreneurs. For those who know maybe how the military uses debrief, it is documenting essentially after an operation what worked and what didn't work. Well, since I've had 2 past failed attempts at being a full-time entrepreneur with reselling being my primary income, I've had a lot of time to think about why that did not work out for me. Mainly the things that I did not do correctly, and then the things that I did do that worked well. I've actually started debriefing pretty often in my reselling business over the past maybe 6 months or so. A proper reselling debrief isn't about shame or blame. It's using your lived experience to dictate your future business practices. I'm using 2 methods for this debrief of my past 2 failed attempts. The first is simply a brainstorm and brain dump of every major business principle that I feel in looking back over those past 2 failed attempts that impacted my failure. By brainstorming those major principles that were left out or omitted on my first 2 tries at being a full-time entrepreneur, of course, in writing them down, that gives me almost like a roadmap of things to do moving forward, how to build those principles into my business moving forward. And in the future, there'll be YouTube content videos specifically focused on each and every single one of those major themes that I plan to incorporate in my business. So when I say that this is months long worth of content, if not possibly a year or years long content, I've got a very long-term strategic plan that I'm working from. I'm not here to waste your time, so let's dive right into debriefing my past 2 failures. I'm going to try to frame this for basically not all the past failures because I'm not trying to get down on myself. So instead, I'm going to be framing things I'm going to be doing moving forward, and you'll just know these are things that I left out previously. First, number 1, most importantly, is I am working this time from a master strategic plan. My business and entrepreneurial goals have grown so much. I've taken pen to paper hours and hours and hours over this past 8 days to build a strategic plan that I'm going to be working from. A big part of that strategic plan is not only the things that I've learned from reselling, my experience in reselling and entrepreneurship, but in my channel, that's just a small glimpse, just like anybody who makes reselling content, just a really small glimpse of who you are as an entire person and your lived experiences, knowledge, education, and so forth. So I will be creating a master brain dump in the future, I'll make a content video about it, of every of every skill set, knowledge, training that I have over the last couple decades of my adult life that I feel might help me in growing my business. I've been a reseller for about a decade or so. Prior to that, I spent a decade in a brick and mortar store in a specialty retail environment selling high-end running shoes and apparel. And so that absolutely fed into my growth and my start as a reseller. And I'm going to talk about that in the future. I also have a bachelor's degree from the University of Tulsa in entrepreneurship and small family business management, etc., etc. These are things I've just never shared before. Why not now? Major debrief point number 2. I do not have clear separation of my personal finances and my business finances. I don't have an LLC, and that is going to the top of the priority list so that I can better understand my finances personally, separate from my business finances. This is not business advice. The past several years, I did reselling more to supplement my income. As I said, I had a primary day job, and it was to the point that I just wanted to make some extra money. I wasn't looking to full scale a business anymore for reselling. And so prioritizing that was no longer an issue. I just wanted to know that I was making money and I was okay with knowing that I was making some profit, but I didn't need to be able to run reports, etc., to the degree that I'm looking to do that in the future. which that directly ties into point number 3, that I did not prior to this have an inventory management system and a sales tracking system, which is, those two are really linked and related. Simply did not know my numbers from a grand scale. I knew item by item what my profit was, but not a big picture. That's going to change moving forward. And that starts with, like I said, the about 159 items that I bought this weekend. Every single one of those items at the garage sales that I was at, I wrote down exactly the price I paid per item. Because for me, trying to remember what I paid for hundreds of items purchased each week, I simply couldn't reliably keep those numbers in my head. And if I couldn't track those numbers from essentially step 1, the idea of 3 months, 6 months down the line when that item finally sold, being able to track metrics and data and reports on that purchase, zero chance that that would be a possibility. This will be a YouTube video of its own, documenting my steps to make that possibility. But starting with, I literally take a flip-top notebook with me. I personally like Write in the Rain flip-top notebooks because they're affordable and they're waterproof. And literally every item I write the date, how many I bought of the item, basic name describing what it was, and the price I paid. More on that to come. In editing this video, somehow this particular segment got not recorded. I really was limited in my sourcing abilities. I pretty much relied on garage sales only, which in Oklahoma, it gets really cold in the winter. As you can see, it's November in the evening. I got my beanie on. It is cold right now. And so, of course, as it gets colder, people stop having as many garage sales, if any at all, for several months of the year. And so then I knew of I was going to a couple thrift stores. But beyond that, my sourcing strategies limited. Right after my failure, the past 2 times, that was my initial reason why, and the only reason why I thought that I failed is because I just had such limited sourcing avenues, essentially. So in this case, I'm going to create a really long list, again, brain dump, of every idea that I have in sourcing. I'm going to get really creative. Related to limited sourcing, I had limited selling channels or platforms that I utilized. Not so this time. I'll again be making a really long list of every selling opportunity that I can think of, to even include like commissioning items at a local auction house. A lot of people use technology to really organize their life. For me, I realized that I like old school things. I have bought this paper calendar because the prior 2 attempts, I had no schedule. I just focused on fun sourcing and what felt like it needed to be done in the moment, just picking whatever felt like I should list at that moment. I had no schedule I was working from. Whatever the opposite of that is, that's how I'm moving forward this time. On May 1st, 2025 of this year, my mom and I opened a booth at a local vintage or antique mall here 4 miles from our house in our hometown. It's a major selling opportunity that I didn't have last time, and it's way, way more fulfilling and enjoyable getting to curate a space, and more to come on that opportunity in the future. Middle school and high school, I grew up obsessed with playing and studying chess. My rating at one point was up into the 1900s. If you're familiar with USCF chess ratings, it got back down, is now in the 1800s. But the point is, a chess is a very much a singular individual pursuit. It is a one man out for himself mindset. And so that's what I carried forward into reselling, is that it's me against everybody else. We're competitors, fight to the death. In reselling, I've learned in the last several years that's really not the best approach altogether, because at least here locally in the Tulsa area, there's a really cool phenomenon going on with local resellers. We're like partnering together and we help each other out. And for me, at least, I'm specifically engaging in partnerships that are mutually beneficial for both parties. Let me give you an example of that. I am pretty obsessed right now with finding reclaimed or like vintage or antique hardware, like like doorknobs, dresser pulls. Let me show you. This is definitely not all of it, but it is a portion of it. But for example, stuff like this. I like finding stuff like this. It's just old hardware. It's simply just made of a higher quality than current standards. And I find that a lot of people are renovating their house and they want this old high quality hardware for their place, and is becoming more and more scarce. And so I collect it whenever I find it. Well, recently I have connected with another local seller. Her passion is flipping furniture, specifically big pieces of furniture. Being that I drive a little Honda Civic, I'll flip furniture from time to time if it's small and can fit in my car. But for the most part, I can't pick up dressers, big things like that. So this local reseller who flips furniture that are big pieces, when she needs hardware that's older and she doesn't have it, She shoots me a message and says, hey, do you have such and such number of pulls for this dresser in this color, this style? I show her what I've got, and we figure out a fair deal where neither of us is trying to profit major from the other person. We're each just mutually benefiting one another. And so that's just one example of many relationships that I'm trying to establish with local resellers. I've abandoned the solo mindset and now working more from the scratch your back and I'll scratch yours. And honestly, it's just way more fun that way to make friendships in the reselling community. Next, while I studied it significantly my very early days, like even prior to reselling, when I just wanted to be an entrepreneur, adding additional income streams. I did not do that my first and second attempt, even though I knew that opportunities were there. We're talking like print on demand, affiliate marketing, future personal brands, all these things. They're things that I want to do, but until I can get a solid foundation of reselling and then hopefully YouTube content creation, those are all strategies with varying degrees of like effort to put forth. But like setting up affiliate marketing, for example, you'll see that at the end of upcoming videos, where if I'm using, say, certain like the Write in the Rain notebook, it would make sense to put a link in this video, affiliate marketing, or if you buy those notebooks, I would get commission from it of something that you'd want to buy anyway. That's a simple, easy to do thing if you're a content creator, to add additional opportunities for streams of income. Maybe no one clicks on it today, this year, but maybe if this content is viewed 5 years from now, who knows? Maybe it could still amount in income 5 years from now. Always smart to set yourself up for income that ultimately feels passive. Being vulnerable here, a really big thing I struggled with my last 2 failed attempts was simply being depressed and lonely. It got to the point where waking up each day and just thinking, I gotta spend the next 8 or 9 hours alone in my garage listing items on eBay for largely a thankless end result, where most of the time you don't, other than maybe a nice feedback, you don't really know if the buyer ever received it, enjoyed it. For me, it was just a very lonely process. This time I'm changing my schedule and just different ways of interacting with others so that I don't end up lonely and depressed here in my garage by myself. That is kind of a vulnerable share. I know from talking with other sellers, it's something that most resellers who work by themselves from home, it's something that we all kind of struggle with and need to address, because ultimately taking care of your mental wellness and health and well-being, self-care, dedicated time, that's tremendously important for long-term success. Next, in my previous 2 attempts, I had no strategy for quick, fast, guaranteed money. What do I mean by that? Well, it's easy to see when you have a garage full of inventory and assets to feel like you're set. All you have to do is get those listed. But the reality is whether you're listing on eBay, in a local booth, Facebook Marketplace, I could have every single one of these items, probably hundreds of items, if not over 1,000 items listed for sale. Let's assume they're super high quality, all priced very competitively at a great price. It should be an immediate buy if a buyer sees it. And let's assume that all of them are strategically optimized for whatever algorithm the platform they're listed on. At the end of the day, I simply cannot determine when that buyer will click that item into their cart and purchase the item, or pay for it at the booth. You simply can't determine that final piece of the puzzle when you're going to make that money. You can't really even it's really actually even hard to budget for an expected amount of money when you're reselling, because the economy, there's just a tremendous number of factors that influence how much money you're going to take home each month. So given that this is most certainly not my first choice of income, I am signing up for Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, possibly dog walking, because in the past I have both done some Uber and Lyft driving, and it is a guaranteed fast way to make, say, 15 to 20 bucks minimum per hour, and you get paid that same day. Those are both certainly things that I do not want to do. They are kind of some emergency things I put in place. If I need to make quick money fast, I've got some options. I have had my logo for quite some time for Early Bird Picker, and I've had these stickers, Early Bird Picker stickers. That's about the only branding and marketing that I had. And if I'm trying to set myself as a real, legit business person, I am budgeting and planning for a lot of different branding and marketing, advertising materials, from really nice business cards that I'll give to people that I want to partner for a long term, versus maybe, say, like the gas station cashier that I want to, just ask, hey, do you have anything that you want to sell? I buy stuff. Moving forward, another thing that I want to do is, often you see YouTube resellers who talk about some massive bulk buy they did or some huge collection that they bought and all the money they plan to make off that. Well, in order to do that, you don't just have to be skilled at finding those opportunities. You have to have the money cash in hand to make that purchase a possibility. So some of those opportunities I have had awareness, but simply not the cash in hand to make the buy when those times come. And so I want to start by setting a goal of having $1,000 that sits untouched, ready to make a bulk buy should that opportunity come across, and then go from there. But I want to have a goal to have some money set aside for when some really nice opportunity comes up for a big collection of items that I can make that purchase. Because if you've been reselling for any length of time, it's much easier from efficiency standpoint to sell maybe 100 pieces of Roseville pottery that are related versus maybe 100 individual different items that you have to research all on their own. If you have 100 pieces of pottery that are all Roseville pottery, you might be able to sell 10 of those pieces to a single buyer because you have such a huge collection of them. It just makes sense. Next, this is a beef that I had with eBay because my eBay account had a glitch. I could not freight ship. I could not set my account up, the shipping setting to freight ship to a buyer. It drove me nuts. But anyway, in the meantime, I have since taught myself how to freight ship outside of eBay. I didn't have the opportunity on eBay to freight ship, and that doesn't sound like a big deal. Once you realize that some sellers are making their entire income, monthly salary that fully pays for everything they need based off just shipping maybe stoves or ranges that they find on Facebook Marketplace, and then they freight ship those to customers on eBay. There's a huge opportunity there because the skill set of freight shipping, it puts you just at an advanced reselling level. That's all there is to it. So anyway, I taught myself how to freight ship, and I did do that from a Facebook Marketplace setting, and I invoiced the person anyway. I now know how to freight ship, and I don't believe in gatekeeping, and so in this series, we'll talk about how to go about freight shipping an item outside of eBay if you want to. For $20 a month, AI has changed my life. Not just reselling, but all aspects of my life. But specifically in reselling, the $20 I pay a month for ChatGPT, to quantify the impact it's having on my ability to make this third go, there's just no way to quantify or qualify or to understand that. It's changed my entire world, basically. I use ChatGPT. I really value my own creative inspiration, but given that, I don't mind if ChatGPT refines my rambling or whatnot and suggests things that I didn't think of in my initial, whenever we chat initially. The next debrief item is that previously, from a personal level and a business standpoint, I never performed SWOT. SWOT is an analysis of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's pretty much a nuts and bolts 101 to any business that anyone wants to run is, what are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And that guides your future action. All those debrief items were pretty much from a standpoint of what I did not do the first and second go around that I plan to do this third attempt. Areas of oversight, which I don't want to be too hard on myself because I do feel like the debrief should include areas that I did do well. I'm going to just talk about two of those things. Number one would be that reselling, being a picker and flipper or whatnot, is my absolute life passion. So much so that I would rather spend on a Friday evening instead of watching whatever is on TV or doing whatever. I would rather spend that evening researching Drexel Declaration vintage hardware. Then my other positive debrief is, while I'm very aware of how my lack of management of my entire business led to failure, I think on a singular item level, I'm pretty skilled at knowing this item is underpriced and as compared to what I could get for it in the market. So I'm able to see item by item pretty quickly what items can be profitable. It's just expanding that to my entire business management rather than item by item. Those are all my brainstorm, brain dump idea reflections of my debrief of what went well and what went wrong and how I plan to move forward. I told you that ChatGPT suggested some questions. I'm just going to read two of them because I think I'm pretty well covered, because that debrief that I just did on my own didn't fully cover maybe my entire business. Gave me a few things that I can work from moving forward. And like I said, I do plan on making videos for each of those items moving forward in its own YouTube, where we take a deep dive into the strategies that I'm doing to optimize each of those aspects. Here's ChatGPT's question number 1. If I looked at my business from an outsider, would it have seemed scalable or chaotic? I think the answer is pretty clear on that one. Totally chaotic, and I was just in the wind is kind of what I would say about which direction I'd be going each day, and I don't think that one needs any more discussion. Question number 2 from chat. Did I have a clear long-term strategy? Nope. I think that's pretty clear as well. I woke up each day and I literally did whatever I felt like that day, because I did not, from step 1, as I'm doing now, a strategic guiding plan and schedule to follow. And I think that further comes from in the moment. You kind of want that dopamine hit. You want to go to Goodwill and find the 5 items that you think are going to help make you money, or what item that you have sitting on your shelf you think, man, if I get that listed I can make like an $80 profit instantly today. But that said, maybe you have a backlog or never have started spending time tracking your sales. And so moving forward, there will be scheduled time either a couple times a week, daily, every week, I'm not sure yet, but there will be scheduled downtime where I will sit down and do the not fun part of entering data into a spreadsheet or whatever I choose, essentially an app. I haven't figured it out yet, essentially, but I know that I am going to figure it out. I'll be tracking my data for my sales, because that's the part that wasn't fun, that I didn't do in the past, but that I know majorly impacted my ability to understand my entire business from a whole. If you're still watching this video at this point, I'm hoping that you're watching because you're like, some of these ideas make sense, and maybe if you're honest, you're not doing them in your own business and you want to start doing them. Other of you might be watching this video and think you're doing too much for simply a reselling business. Well, first of all, that's not my long-term only goal. I'm wanting to scale my entrepreneur projects. I have actually several product ideas that I've come up with over the last 6 months or so that I want to develop, but simply because I didn't have the nuts and bolts of the basics of my business down, there's no way that I could ever take action on these product ideas that I want to make. So I'm trying to set myself up for long-term success, not just immediate wins. With that said, at the start of this video, I think I mentioned that I had a story that I wanted to tell you about how reselling has changed locally, and I had a moment of clarity in networking with some younger resellers that honestly was eye-opening and shocking, because the days of just doing things as you've always done them, sourcing the categories you've always sourced without learning new things, for me, it's impacting my business if I was to stay stagnant. Let me tell you the story. I was talking with this young guy, and we have the Goodwill bins, and a lot of people, that's how they source their vintage clothing, is primarily the Goodwill bins. Specifically, seems to be younger resellers. From a competitive standpoint, it's only getting harder and harder because more and more people see YouTube and TikTok videos about sourcing vintage clothing there, and that's where people go. And so the game is changing. The game is absolutely changing. For me, I'll source vintage clothing whenever I happen to find it, but I don't go out and seek it. But let me tell you what some people are currently doing in Oklahoma to specifically source vintage clothing. There are people in Oklahoma who have abandoned the Goodwill bins. Here's what they're doing instead. They are going to the courthouse. They're looking up court records of abandoned properties. They're contacting the owner of those abandoned properties, like houses in outskirts of town, maybe different parts of Oklahoma or country farm towns. They're asking permission to go through that house, looking for specifically old denim, Levi's, maybe the Big E, and then also just old graphic tees. It's the level that sourcing vintage clothing in Oklahoma, that's where we're at. And so that was really eye-opening, that if there's people out there going to that length to strategize sourcing old clothes, it's kind of one of those change or die moments. And so this is my effort I'm giving to change. Most resellers, especially the longer that you do something like this, you develop your own style of negotiation. And for me, about the last 6 months to a year or so, I've been really experimenting with a new negotiation style, just bluntness. I'm very blunt in negotiation, and I don't haggle, and I have a lot of reasons why. Paired with basically a negotiation and just way of moving forward of bluntness. Pair that with that I also believe in not gatekeeping helpful information to people that are needing that information, and it might be helpful, because in reselling it seems like a trajectory that a lot of resellers take is you get established as reselling, then you start making content, and then ultimately the content at first maybe is for fun, but then you decide, if I'm making all this content, spending this time doing this, might as well try and monetize whatever content, whether that be TikTok, YouTube, what have you. When making these videos, yes, it's primarily focused on things I'm doing right now for my reselling business to optimize it for growth. But that said, I'm also going to document the things that I'm doing from a larger scale as an entrepreneur to create income streams and hopefully help anybody that's wanting to become a content creator and try and monetize their own content. I'm not sure I'm going to be successful, but I'm going to tell you the things that I'm doing to try and get there. It just is in alignment with my mission of adding income streams. I'm basically backing up, walking the talk, whatnot. So the first thing I'm doing in this video, because right now, again, being really blunt, my YouTube channel, it's not monetized anymore, but that is most definitely my number one goal for how to create long-term income. Because reselling, especially the way I do it, I like buying one-off items, unique, just different things that you can't guarantee that you're going to find anything next week. Maybe I found 159 things to sell this weekend. Next weekend, I might find 0. And so creating YouTube content is a strategy for more regular income and hopefully growing income. And it is the direction that I'm going with this channel. I hope that I'm setting my channel up to be really kind of different as far as reselling content, and that while no one's ever going to say, wow, this is the most entertaining video I've ever watched, I'm hopeful that even if you found 1, 2, 5, points from this to take away to apply to your business, that it'll be valuable and that you'll come back and try another video of mine in the future. Given that I'm not monetized on YouTube right now, I have to basically budget my time to activities that, like reselling, like listing 5 or 10 items on Facebook Marketplace today and getting so many items prepared for my booth. Those are income driven, hopefully faster, immediate ways that I can make money. But the faster I'm able to make income, the more time I can be spent making these YouTube videos, which I hope are helpful to a lot of people for a long time down the line. And then in the future, I'll also have affiliate marketing links for items that I use in my reselling business. And then I also have merch. You can see this is my first design. I am still working on my graphic design skills, but it says make money, not muda. And so muda is also a Japanese word meaning waste. And so essentially the goal of optimizing my entire reselling business, or the Kaizen method of continual improvement, is eliminating all waste from your reselling business. So that's the meaning of make money, not muda. And I do have goals to start a Shopify account, link that to YouTube, so that if you feel like supporting me by buying merch, make money, not muda, being my first t-shirt, or, like an early bird picker sticker, I don't know, whatever, that option will be there for you to support me in that way, and you get something in return. What's the next video? I'm just going to read this, what I wrote, because I think it's important. The next video is I'll show how I'm building a visual framework for viewing all aspects of my business so that I can manage each aspect, prioritize tasks, set goals, and optimize success for growth. All activities will be guided with a Kaizen mindset. Small changes make a big, lasting impact. And that is borrowed from the Pareto principle. I'm not even sure I'm saying that right, but the point is, the concept is there. Pareto. The idea that if you change 20% of what you're doing in something, it impacts 80% outcome. Well, I'm changing basically everything I'm doing, so I don't even know what that principle would be called. But thank you so much for watching this episode. If anything I have said has made an impact in the way that you think about your business, please leave me a comment below of some lean business practice that you're doing in your own business that you think that I could do in my restructure of my business that I didn't mention. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Early Bird Picker. I'm Rafa, and as always, I'll see all y'all in the next video.